Hi there, welcome along to another Taking the Biz video. This is the channel dedicated to A-level business study students and their revision. In this video, we're going to take a look at one of our financial ratios. This one's going to be called the Payable Days ratio. It's part of a group of ratios known as the financial efficiency ratios, and that group really look at how effectively managers are controlling the finances of the organization. This one looks at a business's trade credit, and it's going to work out how long on average managers are taking to settle the business's debts with its suppliers. So in most large organizations, they're going to require a whole host of inventories, different kind of stocks that they need in order to produce the product or service that they sell. And from their different suppliers, they're probably going to receive some kind of trade credit so that they buy their supplies and they pay for those at some point in the future. Could be 28 days, could be a 30, 60, 90-day trade credit period, something like that. Now, if managers are doing a good job, if managers are effectively and efficiently managing the finances of the business, they're going to make sure that when it comes time to paying up, the organization that they're managing is paying up on time, settling its debts on time. That's an important thing for an organization for a couple of different reasons. First of all, if you've been offered trade credit by your suppliers, but then when it comes to paying up, you're consistently paying late, then there are some consequences to that. Chiefly, you're unlikely to be continued to offer trade credit. So your firm might find that it has to start paying for its inventory up front because it has a bad reputation with suppliers who don't trust it enough to offer it trade credit anymore. Secondly, you may have a contract with your suppliers so that when they're offering you trade credit, there may be written clauses in a contract saying that you will have late fees or penalties if you pay past the trade credit period. So it could actually be costing the business money and damaging liquidity to be paying late. Also, a couple of more severe consequences. If you're consistently paying late for your inventories, going over the trade credit that you've been allowed by your suppliers, it may be that eventually they will stop supplying you. So you'll have to find another organization that's going to supply you with the inventory that you need. That may not be at as favorable a price as you had with your existing supplier. Maybe that they can't achieve the same quality standards that your existing supplier could. Maybe also if you're using lean production techniques in your organization, maybe they can't deliver as frequently and fit in with your just-in-time arrangements as your existing supplier could. So losing your suppliers because you're consistently paying them late is a serious consequence for an organization. And if things get really bad, of course, you know your suppliers have always got the right to take you to court or launch legal proceedings against you if you are consistently withholding payment from them. So good managers are going to avoid all those consequences, make sure that the business pays up on time, settles its debts within the trade credit periods that they've been allowed. So here we've got the formula to calculate the payables days. We'll take the payables, which you should be able to find in the excerpts of a balance sheet from the organization, divided by the cost of sales, which we should be able to find in the business's income statement. And then we're going to times it by 365. So that means that the answer that we get on our calculator, we're going to express in days. So if we plug all those numbers into a calculator and it comes out as 92, that means the business on average is taking 92 days to settle its debts with its suppliers. Now, what we can do is we can compare the payables days that we calculate with a couple of different figures to see if the managers are doing an effective job of managing the business's payments and managing the business's debts and trade credit with its suppliers. So first of all, we can compare that number to the trade credit period that the business on average is being offered. If the answer comes out as 65, but on average the business's trade credit that it's been offered by its different suppliers is 60 days, it tells us that the business is on average paying late. It's missing deadlines to pay up with its suppliers and coming in at 5 days over its average trade credit period. And then all those consequences that we discussed, they might kick in. We could also compare this with the receivables days ratio as well. And that will tell us whether businesses are receiving payments from their own customers that they've given trade credit to earlier than they're settling their debts with their own suppliers. And that's the ideal scenario. You want to get paid first and then pay your own debts to ease and solve any liquidity issues that you might have in your organization. What we can also do is if this number is higher, if our payable days is higher than the trade credit that we're being offered by our suppliers, just begs the question, well, why is it that managers are paying late? Why is it that they're having to consistently, on average, go beyond the trade credit period that they've been offered by their suppliers? And does it indicate some negative things going on inside the organisation? Does it indicate that the business is struggling for cash, that it's got liquidity problems, that it's scratching around trying to raise the funds needed to pay its suppliers and sometimes can't find those funds and has to settle debts late? One way we could answer that is potentially just cross-reference the payables days ratios with other ratios that we might calculate in the exam, particularly liquidity ratios like the current ratio, or if you have to calculate it for your example, the acid test ratio. Now, if they do reveal to us that the business is experiencing liquidity problems, if our current ratio is lower than 1-to-1 and our payable days is higher than the trade credit periods that we've been offered by our suppliers, then it really does start to send alarm bells ringing that maybe the managers of this organisation are not managing the firm's liquidity successfully and they are experiencing shortages of cash, which is why they can't pay their suppliers. Another thing we should perhaps just tuck under our caps when we're calculating this ratio is you may then think that it's in the business's interests to settle its debts early. If the organisation in your exam has been given 60 days trade credit and then you calculate the payable days and you find out that the business on average is paying after 5, then you might jump to the conclusion that that means the managers are doing an excellent job. They've got 60 days to pay their debts, they're doing it within 5. How financially efficient is that? Well, the answer is not very, strangely enough. The aim of the game with payable days ratios is not to try and pay them early. If you've been given 60 days by your suppliers to settle your debts, then really it's more efficient to take that 60 days. And the reason is because that leaves cash in your organisation for a longer period of time. And firms could deploy that cash, they could do things with it and try and turn it into greater profits for the organisation. But also, I mean, even if the firm doesn't do anything with that cash, it's better off sat in the business's bank account, accruing interest for that organisation, than it is paying debts early and being sat in the bank account of your suppliers. Now, we're only talking about 60 days, 90 days trade credit. You may think to yourself, well, how much interest is the business really going to earn in such a short period of time? But imagine a large supermarket is due to settle a debt with one of its big suppliers, and that debt is got 90 days trade credit on it, and it's a payment of £1 million. Well, if you were to pay up early after just a few days, rather than take the full 90 days, you're sacrificing the opportunity to have that £1 million sat in your bank account for an extra 85 days. Now, the amount of interest that you would accrue on that is in the thousands, potentially tens of thousands of pounds. So it's worth making sure that if you're financially efficient, you're not settling your debts too early, you're settling them just in time to satisfy your suppliers and meet the requirements of your trade credit agreement, so that that money is inside your business for a longer period of time. So there we go. That's our financial efficiency ratio, known as the payable days ratio. Works out how long on average managers are taking to settle a business's debts with its own suppliers. We've got to compare it to trade credit periods. If there's problems, we'll try and cross-reference it with a liquidity ratio like the current ratio. But remember, we don't want to pay up too early, because those funds are better off being in our business. If we've got a contract that says they can be in our business for 60, 90 days, that's where they're better off. Good luck with your ongoing revision. Keep on taking the biz. We will see you very soon.